Okay, so running a short-term rental, it can feel like a bit of a financial roller coaster, right? You've
Yeah.
got income spiking, then dipping.
Oh, that's
Then suddenly there's, an unexpected plumbing repair and tax season's always looming somewhere. It's enough to keep you up at night sometimes.
absolutely. It's a common stress point.
So you sent us this deep dive looking into a system that's designed to tackle exactly that kind of stress. It's built around using these RelayFi sub-accounts based on Walter Wofford's writing.
That's the one. It's presented as the STR envelope system.
Yeah,
And the core idea, it's actually brilliant in its simplicity, really.
yeah.
It's just making sure every single dollar you earn gets a specific automated job right from the moment it, hits your account.
Okay, let's unpack this because
Oh, yeah.
honestly, for anyone juggling STR finances, that
Mhm.
promise of stress-free, it sounds almost too good to be true. The system immediately made me think of like old school budgeting.
It's exactly that analogy. Think about maybe your grandparents with their physical cash envelopes.
Right.
One envelope for rent, one for groceries, one for gas, maybe one for fun money. When the paycheck came in, they'd literally divide the cash up.
And put it in the right envelope.
Right. And you could only spend what was actually in that specific envelope.
It really forced discipline, didn't it? Because the limit was tangible right there in your hand. So this RelayFi system, it translates that same idea, that physical limitation, into the digital world using these sub-accounts inside your main business bank account.
Precisely. Instead of like separate piles of cash,
Yeah.
you have these clearly labeled digital envelopes right there on your screen. And the source material gives some really compelling reasons why this isn't just, a neat organization, but pretty essential for an STR business.
Yeah, what really stands out to me first is just the clarity it must provide. In a business where income is so variable, always knowing exactly where your money sits,
Hmm.
how much is actually set aside for taxes, how much is truly profit, how much is for repairs.
Right.
That seems incredibly powerful.
It totally eliminates that common problem for STR owners.
Yeah.
Seeing a big deposit land in the bank and thinking, okay, wait, how much of this is really mine? What do I need to hold back?
Which directly connects to another huge benefit the source mentioned, avoiding spending money you don't actually have available for that specific thing.
Exactly.
If the operating expenses account looks a bit low, you just know instinctively, okay, got to tighten the belt on supplies this week.
Yeah, it builds that spending discipline right into the structure itself. And it makes things like consistent owner's pay and saving for taxes and emergencies.
Yeah.
It makes them automatic, not an afterthought.
Right. So you're not just sort of hoping there's money left over for you or for the tax bill. The system actively ensures it's there, which keeps you prepared, for those slow seasons or the unexpected costs. And it also means you're ready to maybe reinvest and grow the business.
It's fundamentally a proactive way to manage financial health rather than reactive.
Okay, so if we're actually setting up these digital envelopes for an STR, what are the sort of essential sub-accounts that Walter Wofford's framework says every operator should really have?
Well, it all starts with the income account.
Oh.
You got to think of this as the central hub, right? And it's the main inbox for all your revenue. Money from Airbnb, Vrbo, direct bookings, whatever. It all lands here first.
Got it.
This is the pool from which everything else gets distributed.
Okay, the main collection pot. Makes sense. So where does the money automatically flow from there? What's step one?
First things first, and this is key, you need a profit account. The system strongly suggests setting aside a percentage here immediately, right off the top. Typically, it's in the range of, say, 5 to 10% of your income.
Okay.
And this isn't what's left over at the end. This is the business paying itself first, basically rewarding itself for running successfully.
Profit first. Yeah, that flips the traditional model where profit is kind of an accident if it happens, not the intention. Okay, so the business gets its cut. What about the owner? We need to get paid too, right?
Absolutely. That's covered by the owner's pay account. This one is so critical for consistency, especially with that variable STR income we talked about.
Right.
The recommendation is to allocate a pretty significant portion here, often maybe 30 to 50%.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, the goal is to build up enough in this account so you can pay yourself a consistent amount, maybe every week or every 2 weeks, drawing just from this account.
Yeah.
It smooths out the peaks and valleys.
So you don't just like feast during the high season and then starve during the off season.
Exactly. You avoid that famine part.
That sounds like a serious game changer for just personal financial stability when you're running an STR. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Taxes.
Ah, yes. Can't avoid those. The tax account is your best friend here.
Yeah.
Seriously. The framework suggests setting aside roughly 15 to 30% of your income. Now, this percentage needs to be adjusted based on your specific tax situation.
Sure, income bracket, deductions, state taxes.
All that stuff. But by automatically diverting this percentage each time income arrives, you just steadily build up the funds you need for income tax, self-employment tax, state, local, whatever applies. No more that stomach-dropping scramble when the tax deadline hits.
Oh man, just having that tax money walled off, knowing it's safe, that alone is worth its weight in gold, I bet.
Totally.
Okay, what about the day-to-day running costs? Cleaning, supplies, utilities.
Right, those go into the operating expenses account, or OPEX. This is typically the largest slice of the pie, often needing around 30 to 40% of your income.
Okay.
This covers everything required to actually operate the business month to month. So cleaning fees, guest supplies, toiletries, utilities, internet, any software subscriptions you have, listing site fees, insurance. You get the idea.
And this is where that digital envelope really enforces the discipline we mentioned earlier.
Exactly right. You spend on these things from this account. If the OPEX account balance is getting low, you know immediately you need to be careful with spending in those categories until the next automated transfer refills it.
So it stops you from accidentally dipping into money that was really earmarked for taxes or your own pay or profit.
Prevents that completely.
Okay, so those feel like the core essential accounts: income, profit, owner's pay, taxes, and operating expenses. But the source also mentioned a couple of others that are maybe optional but sound like incredibly smart additions for peace of mind and growth.
Definitely. The repairs and reserves account is very highly recommended. Even setting aside just, say, 3 to 5% here consistently builds up a buffer. And, with STRs, surprises happen.
Oh, yeah. The dishwasher will die mid-stay. It's Murphy's Law for hosts.
Exactly. Or there's an unexpected roof leak. Or maybe just covering your fixed costs during a sudden dip in bookings. Or even a planned vacancy for renovations. It's basically your property's dedicated rainy day fund.
Right, because something will eventually break or need attention. Having cash ready specifically for that seems invaluable. Okay, and what about for people looking to expand or, upgrade their current property?
That's where the marketing or growth fund comes in.
Yeah.
This is where you'd allocate money specifically for scaling activities.
Yeah.
Maybe running some targeted ads, investing in professional staging or new photos.
Or maybe better furniture to boost the guest experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even saving up a down payment for your next property.
Yeah.
If your ambition is really to grow beyond just one listing, this account becomes pretty key.
Okay, let's try and make this really concrete. The source had a good example. If, say, $1,000 of STR income hits that main income account, how would it get divided up using some typical percentages from the framework?
Yeah, it's a really helpful visual. So out of that $1,000, you'd see the money automatically flow something like this. $50 would go straight to the profit account, that's 5%.
Okay.
Then maybe $300 to the owner's pay account, that's 30%. $200 would get allocated to the tax account, 20%.
Right.
$400 goes into the operating expenses account. It's the big chunk at 40%.
Yeah.
And then maybe $50 into that repairs and reserves account, another 5%.
Wow, okay. Seeing it broken down like that makes it instantly clear that the $1,000 hitting your account is definitely not all available for just spending right now.
Not at all.
A huge chunk is already pre-allocated for future needs and, importantly, for paying yourself.
And the source is really clear on this point. These percentages, like the 5, 30, 20, 40, 5, they're a solid starting point. They're like a blueprint.
Right, not set in stone.
Exactly. Your specific numbers will almost certainly need to be adjusted. It depends on your property's actual costs, its location, your specific business model.
Yeah, like a place with a pool probably has higher utility and maintenance costs, right? So maybe OPEX needs a bigger percentage.
For sure. Or maybe a really high-demand luxury property could support a higher percentage going to owner's pay or profit. You have to tailor it.
Okay, makes sense. So you understand the system, you know the accounts you need, you figured out some starting percentages. How do you actually make this happen in RelayFi? The source suggested it's surprisingly quick to set up.
It really is. The first step is basically just logging into your RelayFi account and creating these different sub-accounts. And give them clear names you'll understand instantly. STR income, my pay, property taxes, cleaning and ops, whatever makes sense to you.
Simple setup. Okay. Then comes the automation part, the real magic.
This is where it gets powerful. You go in and schedule automatic transfers. You essentially tell RelayFi, okay, periodically, and the source recommends weekly, but biweekly or monthly could work too. Pull money from that main income account and distribute it to these other accounts based on the percentages I set.
So the income arrives maybe from Airbnb or wherever, and boom, the system just handles the sorting automatically. You don't have to manually move money around constantly.
Exactly. That's the give every dollar a job automatically promise delivered right there.
Okay. What about managing things if you have, say, a team or you work with a bookkeeper or an accountant?
RelayFi has features for that too. You can assign different levels of team access. So you could give your CPA or bookkeeper view-only access.
Mm-hmm.
That way they can easily see the breakdown of funds in each account, which, simplifies things like reconciliation and tax prep immensely for them.
Yeah, I can see that.
Or, thinking about spending control, you could potentially issue a virtual or maybe even a physical debit card that's linked only to one specific account, like maybe the operating expenses account.
Oh, interesting.
And you could give that card to your cleaner or maybe a handyman for approved purchases related just to operations or minor repairs. They can only spend what's in that specific digital envelope.
That's a really smart way to control spending right at the source, isn't it? And for just keeping track of everything, the overall picture.
Yeah, you'll definitely want to sync your RelayFi accounts with your accounting software, whether you use QuickBooks, Xero, Wave, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That integration keeps all your financial records organized and makes tracking revenue, expenses, profit margins way, way easier.
And using those specific cards linked to specific accounts, that really reinforces that whole envelope concept for spending, doesn't it? You literally can only spend what's designated for that purpose from that card.
Precisely. It acts like a built-in safeguard against overspending and just ensures that funds are used exactly as you intended when you set up the percentages.
Okay, so let's pull it all together. Why does this specific system, using these RelayFi sub-accounts, why does it seem to work so incredibly well, especially for STR owners dealing with that variable income?
Well, beyond the automation, I think the number one benefit is the absolute clarity it provides. There are no more guessing games about your cash flow. You log in, you see the balance in the tax account, and you know exactly how much you have set aside for taxes, period.
Which has to force smarter spending decisions, right? You're kind of accountable to the funds available in each of those digital envelopes.
Yeah, you are. And it hardwires in that really crucial profit-first principle we talked about. Your profit and your own pay, they get prioritized. They're allocated first before the bulk of the money goes off to cover operating costs. It fundamentally shifts your relationship with your business's finances.
From one of just hoping money is left over.
Right, to one of intentional design and control.
Yeah, it feels less like you're trying to manage this chaotic flood of money coming in and out and more like you're actually directing it with purpose.
That's exactly the goal. And finally, it just keeps your business prepared for those inevitable bumps in the road.
Right.
Whether it's that unexpected repair we keep mentioning, or a sudden dip in bookings, or even just covering your fixed costs during a planned renovation or a slow patch, that repairs and reserves account, it really acts as a financial lifeline.
This whole deep dive into Walter Wofford's framework and how RelayFi enables it, it really shows that these sub-accounts aren't just, fancy digital folders for your money.
Not at all. They are literally the structural foundation for building real financial health in an STR business. By making sure every dollar flows automatically and intentionally towards its specific job, you create a system that actively supports profitability and sustainability long term.
And the ultimate promise here, the thing that probably sounds most valuable to a busy STR owner, is spending less time worrying about the mechanics of the money.
Yeah, the bills, the taxes, the cash flow crunch.
Right, and spending more of that precious time actually focusing on providing an amazing guest experience and strategically growing the business itself.
Exactly. And maybe, if applying this kind of intentional design, this automation, to something as potentially complex and stressful as your money flow, if that can bring this much clarity and peace of mind, here's a thought to maybe chew on.
Okay.
Where else in your STR operation could you potentially apply that same principle? That idea of intentional design and automation to make other key processes simpler, clearer, and ultimately more effective. Solutions, Walter is actually offering to help you, the listener, get a handle on this financial piece, specifically with RelayFi.
Oh, extending that help offer again.
Yeah, he's offering a free 45-minute Zoom call. He'll literally show you exactly how he's set up and uses RelayFi.
That's generous. He mentions it took him, 45 hours to figure out his whole system?
Right. He says he can save you all that trial and error, walk you through it in just 45 minutes.
And you get the recording afterwards, too.
Yep. He sends you the recording of the call. Super useful to refer back to.
Okay, so how do people take him up on that?
Same contact info as before. Text him at 601-813-4661 or shoot him an email at walterwofford@gmail.com. Critically, make sure the subject line is just help.
Got it. Text or email, subject help.
Walter's story really hammers home how valuable it is to learn from those failures, but also how finding tools to automate things, especially finances, can just massively cut down on stress.
Yeah, freeing up mental energy.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? What are the biggest friction points or time sucks in your own business or even personal finances? And how could maybe identifying and automating those free you up to focus on growth? Or maybe even help you skip some of those painful early mistakes Walter went through?
That's a great question to ponder. Where can automation remove the stress and let you focus on what really matters?